Good morning. Where I come from, this city is spelled as follows. A chicken in the car and the car won't go, that's how you spell Chicago. And this is the same city where I had the pleasure of meeting Catherine many years ago. And before I start my presentation, I want to get just a little bit serious, because for the past 3 months, Catherine has been challenged moving hundreds of employees in and around or from Ukraine to other European cities, has helped the Ukrainian government in its efforts to stop this savage war that has been brought on by the Russians. And sometimes we just have to stop all of what we're doing and understand the freedom and the importance that we have. And I want to therefore take a moment of silence in honor of Catherine and her entire team. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, digital disruption. I've been around this industry for a long time, 37 years to be exact. I've written a few books on the topic. Of all the things on the slide, I guess two that are important to me. I was one of the first 3 inductees in the CRM Hall of Fame with Tom Siebel of Siebel Systems and Pat Sullivan of ACT and Sales Logics. And that was a few years ago. And then the other one is that I received the Humanitarian Award in 2019 in Washington, D.C. for some of the work I do with Rotary, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I formed this company in '85, having attended business school at the Wharton School and London School of Economics overseas, and worked for State Department in technology areas, with the goal in mind that if you apply technology to business, you can really get a value add. And I started the business strictly in CRM. For the first 25 years, I added what are digital customer communities about 10, 15 years ago. And then we added Metaverse about 2-3 years ago. So that's the focus of the company. We've had the pleasure of working with some of the world's best companies. And we've actually worked in the 3 focus areas in several of these companies. So I'm delighted that these are companies that have blessed us with trusting us over the years. If you're tweeting, this is your hashtag. But I want to get right into our concept of becoming a digital disruptor. And I mean your company's becoming a digital disruptor. But more importantly, I mean you becoming a digital disruptor. Clayton Christensen from Harvard University wrote the Innovator's Dilemma: when new technologies cause great firms to fail. And what he said is disruption is a concept. It's a product or it's a service that can do 2 things. It either disrupts an existing market or creates a completely new market segment, and it results from the use of technology or new business models. And when you think about these disruptors, and you think about the impact they've had on you and I as a consumer, or perhaps more importantly, the impact they've had on the competitors that may no longer exist as a result of them, you begin to appreciate how significant disruption can be. I mean, think about if you were BlackBerry, or think about if you were Borders, or think about if you were Blockbusters, or if you are General Motors, or if you're Marriott Corporation that owns the Renaissance Hotel here, or if you're AT&T and you're on the receiving end of these disruptors. And I would suggest that in order to stay in the game, your companies and you must learn how to become a digital disruptor. Because the transition from Blockbuster to Netflix, or Yellow Cabs to Uber, or Kodak to digital camera, or digital camera to the iPhone 13, for example, has been very significant. And when you are disrupted, the fall can be swift and painful. This is Blockbuster's over a 5-year period. In 2007, they were a $5 billion company. Netflix came into the ball game, and in 2012, Blockbuster's declared bankruptcy. And the scary part of all this is this: about half of the S&P Fortune companies that exist today are likely to be replaced in the next decade because of disruption. So, as I put on my big boy pants in the morning, I think I better stay ahead of the game. And I think you should as well. Now, there's good news about all this. Technology can help you transform. And that's what this conference is all about, the application of technology to your business. So what I want to do is I want to focus on 8 what I call digital technology disruptors. I really am going to focus on the final 3, and that's because they are the ones that are closest to the impact they have on CRM. But that's not to suggest that artificial intelligence, machine learning doesn't impact tremendously today. Sales forecasting, lead qualification, chatbot in terms of customer service. That doesn't suggest that IoT, which really is your network of connected physical objects embedded with sensors that include, you could have digital signage, you could have RFID tags, you could have beacons, but to predict customer behavior and to allow us to maintain equipment and so forth. It's not to suggest that 5G network won't impact the way that we are able to create our metaverse and relate to our AR glasses that don't have the power, but we need both the power and the speed of the network for metaverse to be realized. It doesn't suggest that blockchain, which is, I think, an incredibly important technology. So that's the ability, if you will, to take and digitize ledgers, and then take those ledgers and have them maintained on computers globally so that you can't hack or alter the actual the ledger or the transaction, isn't a critical component to take us forward into both the metaverse and some of the newer technologies that are being appreciated. And maybe a little further out, the concept of quantum computing. But my, oh my, this is the technology where you can harness the physical states of quantum states for computing purposes, but a quantum computer can do in 4 minutes what today's supercomputer takes years to do. And we haven't quite figured out how to make that happen, but it'll find its way into a lot of the future, and we just have to keep our eye on it. But again, I want to focus on the ones that are closest to CRM, which are the latter 3. So let's start with digital customer communities. So we all know about the power of online meetings. We've all been on Zoom. It doesn't make a difference whether you like it or don't like it. It is a way of life, and we'll use it more and more in the future. And many of you are working with the internal communities. So the Slacks of this world, there are many other brands that are allowing you to work with your colleagues around the world and share stories and so forth about what's happening. So what I like to see is when those two come together in what I refer to as the digital hotel, or the power of external digital communities. And more specifically, I called it a digital hotel because I've always been impressed by the Hyatt Regency in Barcadero in San Francisco when it was new and you kind of walked in and it was a beautiful lobby, and then it had it came into an apex, and you kind of looked up and it was really very special. And I think of the digital customer community in the same way. It's a digital hotel that on the ground floor has the same type of lounge as the Hyatt Regency. And what do you do in the lounge? Well, you can take a survey, you can fill out a poll, or more important, you can join a forum. And we created this type of a community for ExxonMobil's mobile business, lubrication business, #1 in the world in lubricants. We call it Mobile Connect back in 2013. This is the 9th year that it's been up and running, and it's one of their most important sources for bringing lubrication engineers around the world together with ExxonMobil employees into one community where they exchange ideas and thoughts, launch new products, etc. So we have the ground floor where people hang, and of course you get a virtual drink on the ground floor. Then you go up to the 2nd and the 3rd floor, and there you have your conference rooms. You could have a conference room for technology. You could have a conference room for customer service. You could have a conference room for internal sales discussions about a difficult customer. But these are conference rooms that you go to, you finish the conference, and then you get downstairs to the lounge, have your virtual drink, join a forum, take a poll, survey, etc. Now, above the conference room sit your private customer rooms. So we're just going up the apex. And that's on floors 4 to 19. And here you invite your customers, important customers, for one-on-one digital meetings with, for example, your sales rep, your sales manager. Sometimes we bring in very senior executives from ExxonMobil to join the meeting. But that's your little private place with your customer. And I have to tell you, it's been simply astounding how effective that's been to ExxonMobil in terms of sales and customer engagement, the ability to nurture leads, to have employee collaboration. It's been an amazing story. I mean, 9 years in a global corporation speaks wonders. Okay, that's the digital customer communities. And why that's important on the CRM side is we, in the community, Mobile Connect, we built it and we maintain it. So we listen to the comments in the community. And when you come into the community as a lubrication engineer around the world, it's multilingual, I should add, real-time multilingual. When you come into the community, you have to sign a little document that says what I say can be used to help ExxonMobil create better products and services. So we listen to what goes on in the community, and when we find something of importance, somebody says, I have trouble with foaming in my machine using this particular lubricant, we'll capture that and send it down into the customer profile of the CRM system used by ExxonMobil. And that very next moment, that lead will go out to the sales rep in the territory of that company. So we go from listening, the voice of the customer at all times, into the CRM customer profile, out to the sales rep or customer service rep, et cetera. Okay, the metaverse. Now, this is a bit of a crazy one because I go around the world, I deal mostly with very senior executives, and they ask me these types of questions. You know, I'm big on the metaverse, so they ask me, well hang on, Bart. It sounds pretty cool, but probably way too expensive for us, and quite frankly, we wouldn't have any idea where to start. That's just one of those passing fads. It's for young kids that want to sit there and look cool playing games. Or our product industry has no use for the metaverse. You know, it just isn't right for us. And I have to tell you, I sit back and chuckle a little bit because what I know is the tsunami coming is something of great importance to all of us and to CRM, I might add. So a couple of observations. If you can understand the behavior of people that are on the metaverse, and you can put that as another pedal in your customer profile, for those that know my writing, a profile for me is a flower, a daisy. You put the customer in the center of it, and you have petals of information about that customer. The traditional petal sales, you know, the sales we've done to them, production, what we've sold to them, their financial status, when they complain, whether they marketed, they came to our marketing, forums, what competition they use. We added now the social media pedal to the digital customer community, and we are going to be adding the metaverse pedal on the customer profile. And I envisage in Creatio in a matter of months, I hope, to see their metaverse profile of people so that when we want to have a full understanding, engage with our customers effectively, we know transactional information coming from the profile, we know attitudinal information coming from the profile, and we know what is important to that customer as they play and work in the metaverse. But before I get ahead of myself, some startling statistics. You don't have to buy them all, but they've been repeated so darn many times by the research companies and by even some independent research I've done. I really buy into them. So by 2025, the average adult will spend about 25% of their time in the metaverse. And that figure goes up to greater than 50% for Gen Z by 2030. And the astounding figure is 5 billion people will be in the metaverse by 2030. Think about it. That's a lot of people in this world. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, will you be there to sell and service them? Or will you let your competition be there to take care of that for you? The forecast is in the next 5 years, 70% of all brands will be physically present in the metaverse. And the same question is, will you be one of those brands? Or will you be the next Blockbusters or Borders or Xerox that arrives late to the party? I read an article last night on Silicon Valley. They've invested $10 billion in VC, venture capital funding, in the metaverse this first quarter, or first 6 months now, I guess. $80 billion that are invested by Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and a few others alone, this commitment. This is something we can't duck. We can't expect it to go away. The core areas that metaverse are being used for today is in education and training, as well as what we call field service through something called as remote assist. So the ability for Boeing to fix its planes anywhere in the world, with the technician being physically at the plane in Indonesia and the subject matter expert being in Seattle, Washington, with the same set of Microsoft HoloLens AR glasses, and you can then work together to fix the particular situation. But what I'm very keen on is the growing nature of metaverse applications in sales, marketing, customer service, and manufacturing. And I couldn't do it today because we don't have the time, but I have dozens and dozens of videos, wonderful videos, that show the metaverse in action. Because this is not something that is happening a few years from now. This is here today. If you bought Warby Parker glasses, you can try them on and see how they look on your face today. If you have a apartment you want to fix, or you have a child at college, you want to get their dorm room in shape, you can go onto the IKEA place and see how the furniture looks in the room. You can go to Lockheed Martin and look at how they take and use Metaverse in their Orion spacecraft and how they market that to the US government. Or you can go, as I said, and use any of the remote assists to fix a problem anywhere in the world. That's all stuff today. And for those that are interested, I would encourage you to go to the Metaverse Resource Center. Tim Baharin, my distinguished colleague out in Silicon Valley, and myself created this about a year ago. We've got 122 case studies in it now. We've got dozens of articles, dozens of videos. This is something here today. And again, the linkage is, if 5 billion people, some of which are going to be your customers, are in the metaverse, and you're working with them, and you don't have the profile and the understanding of that customer, and that's not a part of your customer profile that sits in your CRM system, I can only say shame on you, because there's many new rooms in the Smithsonian Museum for companies that won't make this transition. The last one is the one with this conference is all about, and that's no-code. And Catherine and everybody else from this wonderful company called Creatio has stolen my thunder, because they've told you all about it. But I'll just take my angle on it. It's not going to be terribly different. So, they talk about no-code days and freedom to create. And I've had lunch with several of you, coffee, and I like to talk to people, and I've heard some people say, but I don't really understand this. No-code? Really? Like no code? Or is it low code? Or is this here today? Or is this coming tomorrow? And so it's normal. It's okay. That's perfectly fine. I have the same questions. But I must tell you, I looked at some of the demos in the lab in this yesterday. I did the one with onboarding. I don't know if any of you are in the room there, but that was very impressive. In a matter of, I think, less than an hour, I had a blank piece of paper using no code, and there was a form that brought up somebody, onboarded somebody very effectively, tied into the data structure, gave reporting on it, had some pretty colors, and looked nice in an hour. Now, for me, here are some of the big benefits. App development extends beyond the IT department. And we've all worked with IT departments. Many of you may be in the IT department. I have lots of respect for IT folks. But they don't always get the business side. And for sure, the business side does not always get the IT side. So by extending the apps outside of IT and forcing business and IT to work together, you start to get magic. And what happens is by forming these teams, the technologies, the processes, they become consolidated, you begin to have better understanding, you begin to connect more effectively, and you can be governed across the systems and the business process in a way that makes sense. But the biggie for me is workflow automation is done without coding. So I have to tell you a funny story. I was out in Eugene, Oregon last week. And I was with one of my customers, which is a wonderful customer. They make about 1 out of every 4 blueberries that you eat, blueberries, the fruit. They make the bushes that create those. They're called Fall Creek Farm and Nursery. You eat the Driscoll's berries, most likely, or one of the ones in your local, but they made them for Driscoll. So they have a new CIO. He's a nice fella, Nathan, new to the company, new to this business. And he said to me something astounding. He said, the company's processes are pretty screwed up. There's some room for improvement. And I expect to spend much of 2024 cleaning up those processes. 1 year devoted to process enhancement. So I have to tell my friends Andy, who's the VP of sales here for the Americas, we probably had to sit down with Nathan and tell him that Creatio, it's not going to take you a year to do those processes. It'll probably take you a month. But that's the power, if you will, of no code. And the fact is the apps do get rolled out in hours, days, weeks, not months and years. So you've been privy to all of the capabilities. I'm not going to go over them, kind of what the Creatio 8 Atlas and Studio and all the things are capable of doing. But what I always focus on is not the technology, it's the application. So what can you build today that you couldn't build easily yesterday as a result of no code? I focus on a few of them. This automated digital workflow. Behind every successful company, and I've worked with so many of them, are tight, well-structured, followed processes. Nike would be one of the best companies I've had the pleasure of working with. You know, they're a fun company, but you better follow the process, and they're very serious about them. So, you know, we can joke about taking things to the next level, or just make it happen, or just do it, as they call it. But you do it within the parameters of the process. And so automating digital workflows and creating processes quickly is critical. And the ability, to, if you will, to then integrate that with the enterprise data management platform so that you can better engage your customers more quickly, more effectively, very, very powerful. And now the ability with no code to bring in some of the AI and ML capabilities with business intelligence on the analytics side, very powerful. Let me summarize before we go into a small exercise. I would reinforce the importance of your company and you as an individual to become a digital disruptor. You don't want to be one of those 50% of the Fortune 500 companies that doesn't exist 10 years from now. And it is inevitable, as Clayton Christensen has taught us, that disruption occurs in every successful industry. And great companies create their own disruption. So you must transform to stay in the game. You know, I can't tell you how many executives I speak to that talk about, we're doing great, Bart. We've been doing it like this for 20 years. We're in the top of the industry. And what they don't see is the new company based on technology and innovation and disruption that are about to cut their legs off and they tumble. And we'll look at that in just a moment. And the technology can help you transform. So here's what we're going to do. And these are some of the technologies, right? I've talked a little bit. Anybody wants to talk more, I'm around for the next few hours anyhow. So what I want to say is this. Becoming a digital disruptor does have its challenges. And what I want to challenge you with for a moment, and this was, I was told we're going to have round tables, but we'll have to figure out how to do this. I want you to do a little exercise. I want you to sit and talk with your neighbor. Just turn to your right or your left, find a neighbor. And I want you to talk for the next 5 minutes about two things. What are your greatest challenges, both yours and particularly your company's challenges, to become a digital disruptor? And then what I want to ask you as the second one is, what can you do on Monday morning to help address these challenges? So I'm going to ask you to talk. I'll stop you about 2.5 minutes in. Talk, each of you share your story, and then I'm going to pick on a few of you, and then I'm going to give you my challenges. So why don't you go, starting right now, identify the greatest challenges with your neighbor for your company to become a digital disruptor. You can carry it on at coffee break. So what I would like to do now is, let's bring this one to a close. I'd like a few brave people. I'm going to just ask a few brave people to, I'm going to ask the first question. Would you be kind enough to share with us the top challenges you have? And put up a few hands. I'll just pick 2 or 3 of you. And then we just want to get a little feel from the audience. So who is brave enough to share with us what are the biggest challenges you feel your company or even yourself might have as a digital disruptor? Please just raise your hand or I'll pick on you. Which one would you like? Gentleman here, yes. Aligning your strategy across your organization. Very good. Other challenge. Yes, please.
Getting people to adopt the VR option or the online option in a way that they can see is equally as effective as an in-person.
Okay, so getting people to understand playing in the metaverse is just as effective as playing outside the metaverse in a face-to-face. Yes, very good one, by the way. Yes.
Another thing is to quantify the return on investment.
Good. So quantify the return on investment. Does this even make sense? Very good. I'll just take 2 more. Yes, please.
Being a large organization, but at the same time being nimble enough.
So having the entrepreneurial spirit and the freedom to act within the larger corporation. Excellent point. One more. This side of the room is very quiet. Let's see what, yes, sir, back here.
Digitalizing the employee experience all the way from hiring, retaining employees.
I'm sorry, utilizing the employee.
Digitalizing employee experience all the way from hiring and supporting the remote.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. So using that whole digital experience throughout the organization, from hiring to training to bringing them back out in the field. Yeah, there are many companies today that are actually spending the first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks training employees on a VR headset before they actually get into the lab or get into the company. Tremendously effective. 65% increase in retention and recall rates as a result of that. So there's some really good things. Okay, final piece, I'm going to ask a few brave souls to talk about what can you do on Monday morning to address these challenges. So a couple more hands. This one I'll make a little shorter. I'm looking for a couple of hands in the audience. What are you planning to do on Monday morning? Get those hands up, please. I know you're going to do something. Well, we'll make it Tuesday morning. Does that make you feel better? What are you going to do on Tuesday morning? Give me a feeling for what you think you can. Yes, sir. No, that's not a hand. That's a couple of brave souls. What are you going to do on Tuesday morning, please? Yes, please.
We're going to take our users and ask them each for one great idea how we can leverage our CRMs to help them do their jobs better.
Good. So take the employees, talk to them, and listen to what we say, the beast of the belly. Those are the people that actually do work in the company, and listen to how we can better use CRM effectively for them. Excellent. Good. Another idea, please. Yes, please. Say that one more time, nice and loud, so people can hear you.
I picked up an idea at this conference. I'm going to think it through on Tuesday as particular as a possible disruptor to my own business.
Excellent. Excellent. If you can disrupt your own business and take one, I've always said if you come to a conference like this, you take one very good idea back. This has been a good conference. One other thought from this side. What are you going to do on Tuesday morning, please? Catherine, you have to think about this side of the room. It must be the heat or the air conditioning, but something's not right on this side of the room, okay? I'm just telling you. Anybody from this side want to be brave enough to raise their hand? You see that? Yes, ma'am, right in the back.
You could consider thinking about disruption as not fear-based, but opportunity. You could start to talk culturally with the organization about reorienting that concept.
Good, good. So that disruption is really as much cultural as anything else. Well, you've done a great job. I want to compliment you. I took a stab at it last night at about 11 o'clock. It's a new slide. I haven't looked at this since I wrote it. But one of the biggest challenges is executive skepticism. The new challenger we're talking about will fail. I remember sitting in AT&T Labs in Basking Ridge, New Jersey in 2001. It was a small, piddly company called Cisco. I remember the executive team at AT&T said, we'll stomp on them, we'll buy them, we'll get rid of them, don't worry about Cisco. They closed Bell Labs. Cisco owns the territory today. That new challenger did not fail. It ate AT&T for lunch. Or the pride one that I talked about earlier. You know, we've done this way for decades, for years, whatever. The father of the company, the grandfather. We don't need to change. And they don't see that disruptor coming along and taking their legs off. Or disruption comes in low on the priority list. They say, yeah, disruption is very important, but we have a few other things that are important right now that we have to take care of. Or securing executive sponsorship. You know, all it really took at ExxonMobil for the digital customer community, the Mobile Connect community, was one gentleman, Ian Davidson. He was a football fan, a European football fan, soccer fan. And he loved these communities. He belonged to Arsenal, the football club. And he had a couple of years left, but he just was on his desire to build that inside ExxonMobil. And Ian was a friend of mine for years, and he had a $300,000 budget that he kind of hid aside, and we carried it forward. Had there been no Ian, there would have been no Mobile Connect today. So an executive sponsor that has a budget. I think identifying a powerful use case. I think some of you already alluded to this, but you got to come in strong and swift, and you got to document it, financial impact and so forth, so that it will make a difference, so that it actually can bring about a disruption either in the company or within the industry. I think having a solid tool set, and I've always been very impressed with Creatio as a company. They don't pay me to say these things. I say you because I'm 100% independent in the industry, but they've got a tremendous tool set, and I presume you've looked at the Creatio 8 Atlas. I mean, that's really a paradigm shift. I mean, I suppose a few companies out west are a little bit worried right now and elsewhere. So I think that's another important thing, having that solid tool set. And lastly, an effective communication plan. So success breeds success. And as you disrupt effectively, you have to let everybody know that you've disrupted. You have to tell the story of how it worked for everybody else. And so in that regard, I think an effective communication plan. Okay, that brings me to a close. I just make a couple of closing comments. I want to close where I started. I want to thank Catherine and the Creatio team for all that they're doing for every warrior and every home in Ukraine. I also want to thank them for being respectful, and all of us, for all of the Russian soldiers who haven't a clue why they went into Ukraine, and the mercy that we have for them. But I want to bring it back to this becoming a digital disruptor. It's fun, it's inside you, it's necessary, you've got the tools and the intelligence to do it, go do it. Thank you.